we're going to start here in just a minute, but has everybody that wants to speak tonight had a chance to sign up at the sign-up sheets to your right? If not, now's the time to do that. Now's also a good time, if you have a cell phone on you, to maybe put it on silent or turn it off. And we'll get going here in just a minute. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the Morgan County Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for November 28th, 2022 to order. We do have a quorum this evening with all members present. Mr. Rumball, would you mind leading us all in the Pledge of the Allegiance?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Rumball. Gentlemen, copies of the minutes were sent out to us from our last meeting. Were there any changes, corrections, additions, deletions to the minutes?
Good to me. I didn't see any.
If not, I'll open for a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Do I have a second for Mr. McGrath? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are approved. We were sent a copy of the agenda in advance of tonight's meeting. Were there any changes to the agenda for tonight? If not, I'll open for a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as sent.
I have a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. Say aye. 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 The agenda is approved. We ask our board's attorney, Mr. Peden, to swear in anyone who's going to give testimony tonight in front of the board. Mr. Peden, if you could please do so now.
The Indiana Supreme Court has declared this to be a quasi-judicial proceeding, which means you're giving testimony basically to the board. So you will rise, raise your right hand, please do. Be sworn. You and each of you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Thank you, Mr. Peden. Our first item on the agenda this evening is under new business, public hearing D-22-18. Helen Hunter is requesting a development standard variance to reduce the front yard setback for a pole barn. The property is located at 9352 North Stanley Drive in Monroe Township and is zoned for ag. For this application, I have Helen Hunter signed up as the applicant, and in support of, I have no one else signed up for this application this evening. Helen Hunter?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. If you would, and folks, this goes for everybody throughout the night here tonight. When you're up here speaking, we ask that you start out by giving us your name and your address. If you're the applicant, why the board, what you're requesting and why the board should grant that. So if you would, please.
Yes, sir. Helen Hunter, 9352 North Stanley Drive, Mooresville, Indiana 46158. Did he tell me to do that? Okay. The reason that I'm here is I'm requesting a variance from the 35 feet from my neighbor's property line to put in a storage shed. When I built almost 30 years ago, I didn't think I would still be there, and I've outgrown, and the neighbors would much rather I put my stuff in the storage unit than just have it sitting out. So I'm here just requesting that I get the variance so that I can keep the building out of the floodplain.
Questions, gentlemen?
How big is the building?
I'm trying to do a 24 by 44.
this going to be used for just storage only?
Yes, sir.
So your property's large portion of it's in the flood zone, is that right? The
Yes,
flood-
sir.
Floodway. And by asking for this variance to have a reduced setback of 10 feet, that enables you to construct this building out of that floodway, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Have you spoke to your neighbors about this?
I have. I spoke personally with the 4 neighbors that are on the same side of Stanley Drive as I am. And then we have a group Facebook community, and I put it in there before I sent out the letters. So everyone that is around me, I did not speak personally to the people that are outside of my addition area.
Did you speak to the person whose property's 10 feet away?
Yes, sir.
And who is that?
That's Mr. Dennis Payton.
What was Mr. Payton's feelings about this?
He said, sure, go ahead. We kind of share anyways. His granddaughters and come down and play with my goats, and he rides his horses through my woods.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Gentlemen, other questions?
I have none.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, again, we have no one signed up in opposition to this application. She is requesting a development standard variance, and in order for the board to grant this, we have to agree that the applicant meets 4 findings of facts. Or I'm sorry, 3 in this particular one. Under proposed use variance and describe the proposed use of the property, the applicant has written, I'm requesting a variance to forego the standard setback distance in favor of a 10-foot setback. The reason I'm requesting less distance is to safely stay out of the floodplain. I would like to place a prefabricated Amish storage shed, which would be strictly for my own personal use. There will be no business conducted from this structure, no business held or employment involved. Access to the structure will be obtained from my existing driveway and property. There will be no active construction as this structure will be delivered pre-assembled. Under number 2.1, it makes a statement, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. And the applicant indicates that's a true statement and has written, the building will not be injurious in any way to the community. There will be no harmful chemicals or contaminants stored, no loud noise or excessive comings and goings from the building. Under 2.2, it makes a statement, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. And the applicant indicates that also is a true statement and has written, the building will not adversely affect the area adjacent to it. The building will be maintained as will the area around it. There will still be room to mow and keep the area around the horse pasture and building neat and tidy. Under 2.3, the statement is the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. The applicant again indicates that's a true statement and is written. The current ordinance most definitely results in practical difficulties in the use of my property. Although I have acreage, most of it lies within a floodplain. There is limited availability outside the floodplain, which mostly falls within the area that would be the strict application of the term of the current ordinance. Under technical reports, the health department states they have no objections to the proposed development standard variance. The surveyor reviewed and made no comment. On staff's recommendation on this, they have written, the first finding of facts, ask if the reduced setback would have a negative impact on the public health and general welfare. Pole barns are common accessory structures throughout the area. And because the petitioner's property sits behind the adjacent neighbors, the reduction of the setback will be largely undetectable. The second finding of facts asks if the approval will adversely affect the neighbor's property values. The closest home is over 400 feet away from the proposed pole barn location, and all the adjacent properties will have at least one accessory pole barn. Therefore, the reduced front yard should have no impact on adjacent property values. The third finding asks what practical difficulty exists that makes approving the variance necessary. In this case, the petitioner's property is almost entirely within the special flood hazard area, which creates a practical difficulty in placing the barn. Approving the reduced front yard setback will allow the pole barn to be placed out of the floodway. For these reasons, staff supports the petitioner's request to reduce the front yard setback to 10 feet from the property line. Gentlemen, open for discussion.
Sounds very logical, and we have done this in the past.
I don't see anything wrong with what she's got proposed here. At least she's getting it out of that floodplain out there.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry about that.
Any other discussion, gentlemen?
I have nothing.
No, I agree. Property that lies mostly in the flood area, and she's doing, picked a spot that's adequate to get it out so that it doesn't lie within that area. She's met with her neighbors, no objections. She's met her findings of facts in my mind. Open for a motion.
Make a motion, we approve D-22-18.
Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
I have a second on that. All in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It is approved. Thank you. Okay. All right, our next item on the agenda this evening is public hearing SE-22-08. Justin Banks, on behalf of Sons of Thunder LLC, is requesting a special exception to allow a private gun club to be established in an ag zoning district. The property is located at 4891 Galloway Road in Jefferson Township and is zoned for ag. For this application, I have 4 people signed up in support of, including the applicant. I have, looks like 13 people signed up in opposition to, and 2 as interested parties for this. So because we have so many folks signed up for this, what I'm going to do this evening for this application is I'm going to limit everyone other than the applicant to 2 minutes speaking time at the podium. So my suggestion to you is that you think about what you want to say when you're up here and make sure you make your point. It is not your place when you're at the podium to ask questions of the applicant or of the board. You're here addressing the board and your concerns of, if you're in opposition to, then it would be why you're in opposition to this application. If you go over the 2-minute mark, I will stop you. And I ask that we all remember what we were taught back in grade school, and we treat each other like we want to be treated, and don't call out from your seats. We want you to speak when you're at the podium, so you're speaking into the microphone so we can record everything that's being said. Now, did anybody have trouble hearing Miss Hunter when she was up here speaking? Could you guys all hear her? Okay, because we have empty seats up in the front rows. If you had trouble hearing, I would suggest you move up to the front now on that. So what will happen is I'll call the applicant up. They're going to go into, hopefully, detail on what they're doing and why they need a special, what are we doing? Special exception for this. Then I'm going to call up those in support of, and they're limited to 2 minutes as well. Then I will call up those in opposition to the application. And again, you're going to have 2 minutes to speak. Then I'll call the applicant back up and give them another chance to address, hopefully, concerns that they've heard or address some other issues. The board can ask questions of you and the applicant. So please stay at the podium until I thank you, and then you can return back to your seat. Once we have heard everyone, and then the board's had a chance to ask again the applicant any questions if they have that may have arisen during other people's testimony, we'll close that portion of the meeting, and it goes into where I'll read the applicant's application, just like I did on Ms. Hunter's, and then the board will have discussion, and then we will call for a motion and go from there. So, does anybody have any questions? All right. I know the Colts are playing tonight, but if you could, make sure your phones are on silent. I would have thought we'd have had it on the big screen up here while the meeting was going on, but I guess not. So, but anyway, okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, we're going to public hearing SC 22-08. Justin Banks on behalf of Sons of Thunder, and I think I already read all that. So is Mr. Banks in the room this evening? Yes, sir. All right.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Justin Banks, here representing Sons of Thunder LLC. I currently live at 1613 West 300 North in Greenfield. I'm here with my wife, Amy, who is right there. This is my brother and business partner, Jonathan, and his wife, Natalia. And I don't know if he got on the list, but Jonathan was hopefully going to speak after me, so I don't know if he might need to be sworn in.
I'm sorry, what?
Jonathan was going to speak after myself, if that's okay, so I don't know if he needed to be sworn in, if that would still be all right.
Was Jonathan here to be sworn in?
He arrived just after that.
Then, Mr. Peden, would you mind going ahead? I know we had a couple people, I think, come in late. Would you mind swearing those folks in? If you're going to speak, any of you, stand up now and take the oath, please. Thank you. All right, Mr. Banks, please continue.
Thank you, sir. So we represent two of the families involved in this business. My other business partner is Commander Jonathan Stevens. He and his family are not able to be here tonight. He's in active service of the United States Navy. I'd like to give you just a quick background about us. Jonathan and myself, we've grown up together since we were 8 years old, and though we have different last names, we call each other brothers. And about 5 years ago, my other business partner became my brother when I married my wife, Amy. And a quick note about our name. We wanted to pick a name that represented something about us and our faith and our families. And at first glance, it might not sound like it, but let me tell you where it came from. And that is, Jesus had two disciples, James and John, that were brothers. And he referred to them as the Sons of Thunder. So we thought that was appropriate, that brothers that follow the Lord were called the Sons of Thunder, and that's how we got our name. So if it's all right, I'd like to ask my wife, Amy, I have some folders prepared for you guys with some photos and satellite images and everything, if that's all right. Can I?
How many
ask her
do
to
you
hand those
have?
out? 7. They're all the same.
Okay, so we'll take, you can give one to each board member. They will not be returned. And if you would, please then give one to Ms. Parker and Mr. Peden.
Thank you.
So as we stated, we're here to ask for a special exception for a membership-based rifle range and training facility. And to define what that means is that only members will be allowed except for someone who is attending a class, and all classes that we host will be under constant supervision of qualified instructors. So to be clear, it's not open to the public. And I'd like to reassure you that this will be competently operated by those that are qualified to do so. And Jonathan and I have got many years of experience in this industry, and I'm not going to expand on that a whole lot. If it's all right, I'm going to leave that to him and let him speak about that, about our experiences, and I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail about what we're doing.
Please speak up, Mr. Banks. I know I'm having trouble hearing you, so.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I think the proposed use is clear, and I'm just going to move to the standards for evaluation. And in that packet, I know you probably already have a copy of the application, but I put a couple pages in there that just has the map and our answers to the standards. And I reviewed the staff recommendation this morning, and having seen that, and there were a couple letters from residents that raised a couple of concerns, I thought it most relevant that I'm basically just going to speak about the first 2 points on the standards for evaluation, as those were the main concerns. The first point of the 2.1, I thought that was pretty appropriate that that is the first point that regards public safety and welfare. Safety is our first priority too. It always has been in everything we do. You know, I'm sure you could probably agree, you know, firearms, like anything else, from golf clubs to motor vehicles, if they're used wrong, they could be dangerous. So we've always, you know, strived for excellence in everything we do. And we have a good track record for safety so far, and our plan is to keep it that way. So to go a little bit more into detail on safety, if you look at that map that I put in the front, it references the location of the range, but there's also some terrain considerations here. So the green dot down at the bottom where it says clubhouse where rifle firing will be, this is at a raised elevation, and it goes across 2 low areas, and there's a small area here we will have to do a little bit of groundwork to adjust it, but the end result will be firing from a raised location to a lower location that's about 50 feet below the firing point, and that just adds to the safety. So in addition to having our minimum requirement for backstops, there's not actually a state requirement, but we kind of have set our plan to go by what the NRA recommends, which is a pretty good one, and that is 20 feet. So we will have well in excess of that, and in addition to the height of the berm above the target points, we will actually be going at a downward angle, which just sort of gives you more of a margin for error. You know, it's an extra added safety feature. The other locations, there are those 3 red dots. Those locations are not quite as exact, but there's a natural valley that runs kind of from southeast to northwest there. So we plan to actually carve handgun bays into the sides of that natural valley, so they'll be well protected in addition from sound, but also set well below any elevation where projectiles could leave the range. So aside from design features, our biggest safety is going to be how we train people. There is a page in there, I don't know how to tell you where it's at. It's a couple pages. It's right after the special exception use. There's a page about safety, and I don't think I need to read that all, but it's just if you'd like to look at it, just to give you an idea of our view on safety. So every member at our range will be required to go to a mandatory safety and orientation class where we will spend time going over basic safety, range procedures, making sure everyone understands how everything works so there'll be no accidents. I think I've given you a good start on our safety procedures. Then the main concern I'd like to address now is on the standard 2.2, which regards use and enjoyment of surrounding property. I know this was an issue that was raised as a concern, so I'd like to address this in a little bit of detail on how we plan to minimize any effects. So, simply put, the short answer is that the hilly nature of this property and heavy foliage, it really insulates it well for target shooting activities to prevent negative effects on our neighbors. And that's in its own, it's a pretty simple statement. So I have some more detailed information on that, and I did actually manage to get a little orange tag in there for you. If you want to go to that orange tag, there's a page there where I've got some issues to talk about with sound. So this is kind of dry information, but I'm just going to go through it real quick. I'll try not to spend everybody's time too much. So there's a number of different sources regarding gun ranges and insulating sound that say anywhere from 100 to 300 feet of forest to dampen noise. And doing a little bit of research myself from other sources to find other ways to verify this, the Indiana Department of Transportation issued a brochure about highway noise. And regarding highway noise, they mentioned the effectiveness, though it's not practical for highways because of the size, of 90 feet of forest to dampen sound by 5 decibels. And it doesn't sound like much, but let me read you what they say about the effect. They say, and I quote, "Effective noise barriers typically reduce noise by levels of 5 to 10 decibels, which reduces the loudness of traffic noise by as much as 1/2. So a few decibels makes a big difference, and that's only in 90 feet of forest. So from where our primary firing line is, we're gonna have over 1,000 feet of forest in any direction before you come to any homes or even anyone's property. There is one property that's a little bit closer. There's that circular section that says it's exempt, and that property is gonna be fairly well insulated because they're slightly behind the firing line. And that's another design feature of how we're going to design this range. I don't have a drawing for you, but to put it simply, we want to build a long rectangular building. And on the north-facing side that faces down the range, we're going to take the outer wall and set it back 10 feet, and that's where the rifle bays will be. So it will insulate the sound to a degree from going back or to the side. So most of the sound will be directed along the firing line. So as I noted there as well, there's where the handgun bays are, which are in that natural valley. In addition to the terrain, there's still 750 feet of forest between there and the nearest house. The rest of this page, I've got some comparisons of other facilities around central Indiana. The first one is the Indiana Gun Club. They're an outdoor public range in Fortville, Indiana, that primarily does shotgun, trap and skeet, and they operate, they actually only operate, I think, 4 or 5 days a week, but their zoning allows them to operate every day from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And around the Indiana Gun Club, that is, if you go to the next page behind there, that first satellite photo is actually the Indiana Gun Club and the surrounding area. And you'll see there are neighborhoods literally running right up to the edge of their property. So there are more than 200 homes within a 1,500-foot radius of their firing line. And there are houses as close as 200 feet away. So looking at the satellite there, you can tell there's not a huge amount of insulation. We're gonna have a lot more than that. There's a quick note here about the quality of that neighborhood that surrounds them. It's a pretty high-end neighborhood. In the last year, there's no homes currently in there for sale that I could find, but in the last year, 6 homes sold in there, prices from $480,000 to $640,000. So just to kind of point out that people aren't too worried about this being next to the Indiana Gun Club. Another one there is the Deer Creek Fish and Wildlife Area. So this one, I don't believe I have a satellite photo of that one, but I brought up Deer Creek because one of the staff reports, when I read that, one of the things that they mentioned is possibly limiting the operating hours. And I'd like to address that in a moment, but the point of Deer Creek is that their hours right now, they operate Wednesday through Sunday, 9 to 5, and many of their members complain that it's not enough time because most people like to enjoy the shooting sports as a leisure activity after work or on the weekend. And moving on to the next one, which there is a satellite photo of, it'll be the second satellite photo. That is Hillside Shooting Sports. This is another outdoor public range in Roanoke, Indiana. There's operating hours on there. They kind of vary from 10 to 7 to 9 to 6. They vary a little bit every day. But the main point that I wanted to make with Hillside Shooting Sports is their main firing line, as you can see, I used the Google measuring to show the distance there, that their firing line is about 1,440 feet away from an equine therapy farm. So this place has animals, and they actually bring in people with special needs for therapy at this location. And it's that proximity to a range, and it obviously doesn't bother them. And the last one, which there is also another satellite photo, well, I should say, after that second satellite photo, there's a page. This is just the About Us that tells you what that equine therapy farm does. If you wanted to know, like I said, just for comparison's sake, to show what type of activities in what proximity to a range that cannot be bothered, that it's not really troublesome to them. And the last one, the Fall Creek Conservation, I put that one in there just as another example of a range that has homes that have been built in real close proximity. So, kind of to summarize that, in addition to the way we're building this to minimize the effects of sound and the fact that we have a lot of natural things kind of to our advantage, just the distance that we have is very sufficient for this type of activity. Sorry, I'm going through my notes here. Try to keep moving. I think in the remaining standards, I'm not going to address those. I don't want to waste everybody's time. According to, I believe from our application and the staff review, I believe those have been satisfied. So I won't waste everybody's time on addressing those until later if you have any questions for me. So really at this point, I just want to say thank you to the board again for your time tonight. Thank you to everybody who came out, whether you're in support or you wanted to hear about this and oppose it. Thank you for coming. I mean that. There are also some petitions in the back of the folder. There were a number of people who could not come tonight but wanted to show their support. So we did 2 different petitions. One was an online and one was written. And those are in the back of the folder, just people who wanted to show their support that they want this to happen. We want this to be something that is good for the community. It's not just something we want to do. We want this to be good for the community. We have already reached out to local law enforcement, and we have offered them at least 1 day a month for their use free of charge, because that's just something we want to do. I know local law enforcement, the couple that I've spoken to have expressed an interest in having access to a longer distance range. I know Martinsville's police department, they have a 100-yard range, which they can do most things there, but they have expressed an interest in having a longer distance range. On that note too, we believe in honoring those that put their lives on the line for others, and we will be glad to offer discounted memberships to all veterans, law enforcement, and first responders. That's most of what I've got really here. We really just look forward to building something that, promotes safe and responsible gun ownership. And my wife and I have received a really warm welcome from people we've talked to around here, and we look forward to making this community our home. Other than that, I look forward to answering any questions you have, and I'd like to allow my brother Jonathan to come up and speak, if that's all right.
Well, we're going to hold you up here for just a few minutes in case any of the board members have any questions as soon
Yes,
as
sir.
you're done.
How many active members is in your organization right now? Dues paying members?
We have no dues-paying members.
How many members then?
No, we don't have any members. This is a new venture. Our history, which, like I said, my brother Jonathan was going to speak to, is in training. That's primarily our history. So he is the one who will be, our operating setup is that I'll be responsible for day-to-day operations, and he's going to be our chief instructor. So he is, that's why I said he's kind of the one who's more suited to speak to that. But that's where our experience comes in, is mostly in training. And again, with Jonathan, he has a lot more experience also doing various executive protection. And he's trained, I believe, I don't know how many, but a number of different law enforcement and government agencies as well.
What you say here, I'm looking for it, is members. The way you're talking, anybody can come then.
Anybody can come and ask for a membership. And if they sign
You have no
up.
members now.
What's that?
But you have no members now,
No.
basically.
No. So our primary source of members is going to be people from this community. We live on the other side of town. My wife and I live in Greenfield. My brother lives up in Noblesville. And we've been looking for a place to start something for a couple years now. And we hope we found it.
I have to ask this question. People have been asking me. Sons of Thunder, you involved with any motorcycle gangs?
No, sir. You know, that's actually why I went into a short description about our name, because somebody brought that up to me one time we were talking about it. They're like, that name sounds a little, I'm like, yeah, I got to explain that.
What days are you planning on having this open?
Yes, so thank you for that question, and I actually forgot to address that. So we had initially, our application, we asked for 7 days, 8 to 8, normal daytime hours. So the reason we asked for those hours, our actual intention is for people who become members at the range, we plan to operate from Tuesday through Saturday. The reason we just asked for 7 days is because, again, Jonathan, as our chief instructor, is planning on hosting classes, and a lot of people like to do that on the weekend. So that's why we asked for every day. But we don't actually plan on operating every day. So the general operating plan is Tuesday through Saturday, nothing on Sunday, and Monday as a maintenance day. But after reading those letters and hearing concerns about hours of operation and days, I actually added after the end of everything that I included about the maps and showing the distance, and there's also a couple maps that show the distance to the neighboring properties of those two people that wrote letters that were complaining about noise. I showed, the closer property is over 2,000 feet from where our rifle firing will be, and over 1,300 feet from where those sunken in the valley handgun bays will be. But after that, there's a brief note here about noise. And at the end here, this was actually what I proposed to change our application, is we would limit special events or training, which will be just an occasional thing where training classes might happen on a weekend. We might have a class on a weekend, and maybe once or twice a year, we might have like an accuracy competition for our members. So something like that might be on a weekend. So we would limit special events or training to hours of 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we would further limit our operating hours for member use to the same hours, but Tuesday through Saturday. And this would again be a maximum operating hours, and obviously this time of the year, we're not gonna operate till 8 o'clock. In the summertime, it's light till 9, so some days we might wanna be out there later, but obviously this time of year, we're gonna be wrapping up at like 5 o'clock.
So what is the backstop going to be when people fire?
It's gonna be, well, basically the side of a hill. It'll be, there's a natural hill there now, and then what we'll do is we're gonna test the soil and find out what's there, and if there's any kind of debris or rocks or anything in that, we'll carve it away and put in clean fill dirt. Because you need, for a proper backstop, you need at least 2 or 3 feet of clean soil, because if you have any rocks near the surface, it can actually cause ricochets.
Are you going to clean up the lead and stuff eventually, or as you go, so it doesn't pollute any water?
Occasionally, yeah. So on that issue, there's, again, there's not really much of a standard there, but it's something where we plan to do every 5 or 10 years. So where our final targets are at the back is not obviously going to be our only place. We're not going to say you can only shoot at 550 yards, but we'll have some intermediate berms. So what we'll have is we'll have a large backstop, which will be that hill at the very back. And then in the intermediate, we'll put shorter berms of, again, clean fill dirt. And those, and at the back, they can be raked out and cleaned every few years. And at the very back, that's probably the closest to any running water, because there is a kind of an east-west drainage there. There's not an active creek, but it is for rainwater runoff. So we would actually not be shooting right at the bottom. I mean, it's about 100 feet or more from the bottom where that drainage is to the top of the hill. So we can easily come up 20 feet away from that, so there'll never be any issue with water taking lead anywhere.
What will the length, the distance you'll be able to shoot with a rifle there?
The maximum will be 550 yards.
Will you be using automatic weapons also, or semi-automatic?
Semi-automatic. So, I haven't written this all down, but part of our standard rules that we've been working on, kind of as we've been making plans for this, is that every shot must be controlled and intentional, meaning that no rapid firing, just pulling the trigger as fast as you can. We're not going to allow that. We're going to be strict on that. I'm not going to say you must time it every X amount of time, but every single time someone pulls a trigger, it must be a controlled shot, and that's going to be our standard.
How many would you have signed up to fire in an hour or a day, or?
So if we're able to build what we'd like to, and that's going to kind of depend on building permits and how that works out, but the building we want to build should be able to have 14 rifle bays. And, you know, I don't expect on a normal day to have them ever filled, but I expect that maybe once or twice on a weekend it might fill up. And otherwise, we plan on using a reservation system to kind of limit traffic so people aren't waiting and crowding the road or anything like that.
So mainly no more than 14 people firing?
Yeah. Now, we will have the handgun separate to that, so we could have a couple more than that. But my guess
They won't be
is,
firing at the same time, though, right?
no.
That's my question.
Any other questions from the board members?
You got a limitation or caliber size that you're putting restrictions on, or is it gonna be an open range?
We have not finalized that yet, but my initial answer to that is that, to put it just in basic terms, we're not gonna allow any anti-material rifles, if that makes sense. Like a 50 caliber is an anti-material rifle, and that requires very specialized materials to be able to stop that. So standard rifle rounds, we don't necessarily have a caliber limit. I mean, there are standard hunting rifles that shoot I believe a 500 caliber, which is basically the same diameter as a 50 caliber, but it doesn't have the same force to it. So we wouldn't necessarily put a caliber restriction, just a type restriction.
I got one more question. On your berms, you're gonna have them on the sides, the left and right of the fire?
Not actual backstop type berms. You mean on the, down toward the end?
No, even at the beginning, if they're gonna fire, they wouldn't be firing over on somebody else's property, is what I'm saying.
We don't have any plans to have berms on the side. That's not, I mean, I know there are places I know of that do that, but it's not common for a rifle range because it's not practical to put a side berm down for 1,500 feet.
Not the whole distance. If you're gonna go off range, you're gonna go pretty close to your, like this room. Okay?
Yeah.
Farther down the range, it may go off, but I mean, normally you're gonna hit the dirt beams before you get too far out.
Yeah, so I guess the way I would address that is that instead of having, you know, berms on the side back there, like I said, that's not a standard that I've seen. Some places have things on the side if there's a house next to them or something, but again, we're well insulated in the hills. We don't have neighbors real close to the range, so it's just us out there. Our main control on that is gonna be safety and training, and that's where, if you go to that safety page that I put in there, there's kind of 4 basic safety rules that everybody has to follow, and kind of everything builds on that. You know, the first one here, always keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. So I've kind of wrote a little bit here about how we will implement that, but in order to prevent negligent discharges, it's simply like following the steps. Anybody who brings a rifle onto the range, it's got to be unloaded at home and brought in a case. You don't take it out of the case till you're on the firing line. You keep your finger off the trigger till you're ready to fire. You don't load it until it's on the range, pointed down range, and you're ready to shoot that firearm. That's the only time you load it. And we even have an additional one here that we like to include that is knowing your target and what's beyond it, where we will discuss with people sort of why it's safe to shoot at our backstops, why it's not safe to shoot at anything else on our property. Because anything else in between or off to the side, it's not safe because you don't know where that's going. So that's part of our discussion that we'll have with members about knowing your target. And so between having the safety, and then we'll talk about knowing your target, in addition to that, we'll talk a little bit with people about why it's not really safe to go shooting just anywhere you feel like it in your backyard unless you have a properly established backstop.
Well, I was just in the military for 42 years.
Yeah.
And at Camp Atterbury, quite often, they had berms on both sides of the ranges.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then they had in front of the targets, so you'd either hit the dirt or the target.
Yeah.
But on the sides, they still had berms. And I can tell you, you could be firing there all day, and there'd be deer on that side of the berm, and they know that they were safe.
Yeah.
I've seen it. So, I mean, it may be something you might want to think about, putting berms up so far on the sides, so it doesn't.
Yeah. Again, we haven't really planned on putting berms up just because of the way the land is, because it's kind of like a raised elevation shooting down into that valley, which is kind of the bigger safety concern. But we do kind of plan on having, like, again, the bays are going to be partially enclosed within the building, so they kind of only go forward. And we do plan on being pretty strict on that as far as how people handle their firearms. And we will have an RSO on site at all times when we're operating.
Could I show up there with a rifle, say I want to become a member, and shoot that day?
Maybe. If you call me ahead and tell me you want to come, and if I've got time to sit down with you and spend a couple hours with you to go through a safety class, then I'll do it if I can. But I'm not going to promise that. If somebody comes and I don't have time to sit down with them because I've got to be on the range because I have people shooting, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, but we have to schedule you for a class. So.
But he could talk to you and then come back the next day and shoot.
Sure. Yeah, well, again, it depends on having the availability to do a safety class first. That is going to be a strict requirement.
Are people going to be hunting on that property?
No.
Have you checked with the local police in Paragon and the EMS people?
I have not.
What do so they know how to get there quickly?
Not yet. We're,
It'd be good to let the fire chiefs know.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're still pretty early on in this. We don't technically even own the property yet. So.
No other questions?
Did I see somewhere where somebody's going to take up residence on the property?
Yes, we are hoping to eventually apply for a building permit, and my wife and I will hopefully build a home there. That's, yeah, that's this, the green and purple kind of in the middle over here. Yeah, that's where we would plan to be, right there.
And that gravel driveway now, is that going to be improved?
It's going to be improved. Yeah, it's pretty rough right now.
Not for a Tahoe, it's not.
Right? Yeah, I could take my truck up there, but yeah, it needs a little work before it's going to be ready.
Do you have a limit on the number of members you'll accept?
So I'm going to say not yet. In fact, we were just talking about that a couple days ago because some local people had raised a concern about another shooting range that's not too far away that they haven't been able to get into because there's no open slots. So my estimation is that we will probably stop taking members somewhere in the neighborhood of 500. And it kind of depends. We're going to have to evaluate that after we have a couple hundred members and see how busy we start to get and gauge that, and then we'll set a stopping point.
You mentioned when you were talking earlier about the rifle range will be insulated from noise, but Mr. Crone asked you if it was going to have a berm alongside of it. You said no. How is it going to be insulated from noise?
It's very heavily forested, that entire property.
Okay,
Even
so
now with the
nothing
leaves are down.
artificial, just what's there
Nothing
today.
artificial, except for the firing location itself. That's the only artificial insulation. And that's what I was kind of trying to describe. I don't know if I described that very well, but the actual building where we put the firing bays, they'll be set back inside underneath the edge of that building, so they'll actually be covered on the sides to prevent sound from going out to the
Will they
side.
be shooting from that building itself then on the
Yeah.
rifle range? There's no
Yes.
exceptions to that of them stepping outside that building to shoot
No,
down,
the
right?
only exception to that would be if we ever come and, ask for a permit to extend or put on more rifle bays. But, yeah.
You mentioned something about ATV trail in here. Is that,
Yeah, so right now, there's not actually a road that goes back there to where we want to build. It's only an ATV trail.
okay,
So
so
the
you're
plan
going
is
to convert that into a road? You're not offering
Yes.
ATV trails on the property?
No, I just pointed that out, that there's an ATV trail at that location, that we will improve that into a drivable road.
And how much experience do you have running a gun club or gun range?
Running a gun club, none. Managing people on a range, 10 years.
As a safety officer, instructor?
Yeah, my experience has been as an assistant instructor with Jonathan and as a range safety officer.
Thank you. And then you don't own the ground, you're
yet.
proposing to buy this, is that correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
Days of operation, you talked about that, but I'm a little cloudy on what you landed on with that. What are you
So-
proposing tonight,
So-
your days and hours of operation?
So my proposal was to shorten our hours slightly to 9 AM to 8 PM and only allow standard operation from Tuesday through Saturday. And anything on Sunday or Monday would be just a special event, or if there was a weekend training class that we had people coming in for. And another note also in those training classes, that we limit those on size for safety. You know, we don't allow more than 4 students per instructor. So our typical class size is 4 to 8 people. So that would also be a consideration to know that, you know, we're not gonna have, 50 people coming in every day. You know, we'll probably have, my guess would be maybe a couple cars an hour on average. And if we have a
Okay.
class, there might be
Thank you.
10. Sorry.
I
Yep.
was concerned about your hours of operation. How many members can shoot at one time?
Well, the maximum would be, if we're able to build everything we want to, probably 17, because there'll be 3 handgun bays plus the 14 rifle bays.
Okay. Are the handgun bays going to be, you're going to be shooting from an enclosed space like you are on the rifle range, or is that going to be an open?
Those are going to be open, but those will actually be covered on 3 sides, because those are going to be carved into the side of that hill.
Okay, and automatic weapons, Mr. Rumbaugh asked you, and I don't think you directly answered the question. Yes or no, automatic weapons allowed?
Fully automatic, no,
Okay,
but
thank you.
semi-automatic, if controlled, yes.
All right. That's all the questions I had notes on.
Have you met or spoke to any of your neighbors out there?
A couple of them I've been able to speak to, but not nearly everyone.
All right, gentlemen, any other questions at this time for the applicant?
No, I have no more at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Jonathan Wallace. Yeah,
Good evening.
hang on just a second, Mr. Wallace. You and everyone else that follows, just a reminder, are limited to 2 minutes, so keep it pertinent, and I would suggest you not repeat what's already been said.
Okay, yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. I won't take up too much of your time. I know we had a long night, but basically I'm here. My brother asked me to speak on the training applications that we do. He's put all the legwork in on all this stuff with the range. First of all, I'm not part of a biker gang either, okay? So, but the training is, in our experience, I have a security company. It's called Native Executive Security. It's an executive protection firm based out of here in Indiana and Central and Southern Africa. I take clientele overseas to Europe, Middle East, and Sub-Saharan Africa, provide security for them. We do executive protection here in the States. I've been doing it for almost 20 years. In addition to that, I train law enforcement in executive protection. I'm the executive protection director for KDI Protective Services, which we travel around the country, and different agencies host us to put together their executive protection or dignitary protection units within their agencies. I've been doing law enforcement training for 12 years now, and also doing firearms training for civilians for the past 17 years alongside my brother. He is my assistant, and he's also a range safety officer. We've trained thousands of civilians who want to exercise their Second Amendment right. We've done it in a safe manner, never had an incident. I'm also the North American Director of the IBSSA, which is the International Bodyguard and Security Services Association. And I'm the Director of Field Operations for Watchman Security as well. In training, we actually have an academy that we call ourselves, it's a Protection 360 Academy, which is what I would like to bring to the table with this range. And basically what we do with every handgun or rifle course is we work on the compass. So you handgun 90, handgun 180, handgun 270, handgun 360. That's our goal.
Thank you, Mr. Wall.
Okay.
All right, we hit our time limit. Mr. Joe Hammer. Passes, all right. Dennis Nail? Is it Nail? Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, that is all I have signed up in support of. And we have several signed up in opposition to. Do any of the board members need a quick break before we get into the next phase? Everybody's good? Okay. First person I have signed up in opposition to is Tracy Latcher.
Sorry, I'm not Tracy. I'm just going to grab this water. People don't have to use it.
Okay? Is Tracy here? Tracy's going to pass. Thank you. How about Cheryl Terry? Folks, don't forget to start off by giving us your name and your address, please.
My name is Cheryl Terry, 7609 South County Road, 825 East, Plainfield. I'm against this going in. We own 120-plus acres that butts up to this. It's been in our family since probably in the 60s on it. It's very peaceful, very calm out there, and we have a lot of our kids we take out there. Everybody goes four-wheeling, and I just don't think this would be a good place for it. I don't think they can guarantee 100% safety on it. You know, you always have somebody that's going to be irresponsible. An irresponsible shooter, they can't control how much or how fast he's going to shoot. Wildlife, it will run all the wildlife off, and we have a lot of that. They have no places to get to now because of all the building going on, and this area is full of wildlife. They've talked about all the wildlife, you know, not in the area of shooting ranges now. So why are they trying to bring it out here where all the wildlife is at? You have people that rides horses up and down that road or in that area a lot of times. The traffic it's a curvy, very curvy roads out in through there, and I think it's going to bring a lot more traffic in, and I don't think the roads are going to be, will handle all of that. But the main thing would be the safety of it. Besides running off all the wildlife, what's going to happen if one of these guns, they keep saying they're building these berms and they're going to have these backstops. Okay, what's going to happen if one of those bullets goes through that berm don't stop it, and you've got somebody riding a four-wheeler that's up next to this and it shoots and kills them? What's going to happen then? How can they 100% guarantee that won't happen? And I just think they need to keep it back in Greenfield or wherever, but I don't think it should be out in this area on it. There's just too much safety issues there for it.
Thank you, ma'am. How long have you owned the property next to it?
It's been in our family, I believe, since in the 60s on it. My parents just passed away, and we inherited it. But it's been in the family since in the 60s.
And your property butts up to this property?
Yes.
Does anybody hunt on that property?
Pardon me?
Does anyone hunt on your property?
Just family.
But they do hunt on it?
Just every now and then, yes.
Okay.
Not all the
Okay.
time.
All right. Thank you
But
very
I
much,
think-
ma'am.
I
Any
think
other
all
questions from the board members? You've hit your time limit, so
Okay.
now it's our
I have
turn.
none.
Nope,
Okay.
gentlemen? Nope, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Michael Terry.
Mike Terry, 7609 South County Road, 825 East Plainfield. As my mom said, we've had property that's been in our family since the 60s that we go out to every weekend, take the grandkids out there. They do a lot of riding quads. It's pretty peaceful. We've known everybody around us for a long time. The safety's the biggest issue. I don't see where medics can get back there, especially when the wintertime comes on. The roads back there is not prepared. I don't see where anybody could get back there in a safe amount of time when an accident happens. And accidents always happen. There's no way that they can guarantee this. And just like when you brought up to them about the berms, they didn't want the berms on the side. I just see there's too many risks involved. So my main concern is with the safety. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions, gentlemen, for Mr. Terry?
Do you hunt out there?
I do.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Terry. All right, Jerry, and I think it's Pruitt. Okay.
My name's Jerry Pruitt. I live at 4895 Galloway Road. We owned the property, extinguished all that. My mom sold off the woods. I own 11.3 acres, and it's a campground. It's been a campground for 50 years. I have people coming out there for peace and quiet. They bring their kids out to fish, and the water for the pond or lake is off natural spring runoff out of the valleys of the back up in there. And you talk to kids until you're blue in the face, but you know, kids, they want to run and play in the woods. And it's very likely one of them could get up in there, they hear the noise, they go investigate, see what it is, and something's going to happen. I'm just worried about the kids. I have a small dog, a couple other dogs my daughter has, and they're gun shy. They see a gun, they run and hide. They hear a bubble wrap pop, they run and shake. So I'm against it. Like I said, they go back there digging, start building. It could stop off the water flow. My lake will dry up. You know, I don't have much of a little business going, enough to pay my property taxes and help me out now and then. But hey, everybody's got to do what they can anymore, and kids are the future of this nation. Thank you very much.
Hang
How
on.
long have you lived out there?
I've been down there for a good 25 years. My mom and dad's owned it for another 25 years before that, till my dad passed away.
Did you say they owned the property that the applicant is asking?
We owned
for the
116
exception
acres
for?
back to where the Boy Scouts owned, all the way down.
Familiar with that? Did they own the property
They
that
own
the
the
applicant
woods.
is now trying to buy?
As far as I know, they're coming up my driveway.
Okay, all right,
I built the pole barn on top of that hill.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, gentlemen? No? All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Josh, where you at, Josh? What's your last name? Proctor. All right, I apologize, I can't make the next one out, but starts with a Y and at 4850 Galloway Road? Yvonne. Okay, all right. Yvonne, what's the last name, Yvonne? Harmon. Harmon? H-A-R-M-O-N. Come on up. Please.
Okay. Yvonne Harmon, 4850 Galloway Road is my home address. We are zoned agricultural. Many of us out there have livestock animals, children playing, pedestrians walking up and down the road. Our roads are so narrow, we have to get off the road so someone can pass us. How are they going to help traffic control with 15, 20 people coming in and to shoot? I mean, it may not be in an hour, like he said, but our spouses are going to work, we're going to work, our kids being picked up and dropped off on the school bus, grandkids playing, people riding horses, people training their animals. We have a lot of, it's just an agricultural area, and we're just wondering about the traffic flow because there's one way in this area that they're talking about, and there's one way out, and that's Galloway Road. And there are literally trees that are on the street edge, and if you're passing another vehicle in that curve, you're going to hit if one doesn't stop and get off the road. I don't need 20 other cars coming flying up and down my road when my grandchildren are out there playing, or my neighbor's children are out there playing, or walking their dog, or riding a bike, or someone's training their livestock, their horses, or, you know, showing goats or whatever. And that's what did you say I could or could not ask a question to the, okay,
You can't.
okay. We didn't know about when they had
And
planned
your
on.
time is up.
Okay.
But I'm going to keep you here for a second. Gentlemen, any questions? Where do you live in relationship to this property?
They are on the other side of the road, 3 properties to the west of me,
Okay, all
up
right,
the hill.
all right. So the next person, any other questions, gentlemen? The next person I'm going to call up is Pat Shields. All right. Dave Wilson. April Cromwell. Where you at, April? Okay, thank you. How about Chris Wilson? Jeff Wilson? Erwin Hacker? And how about Mary Hacker? Thank you. All right, that's everyone I had signed up in opposition to. Then I have 2 folks signed up as interested in the petition, and the first is Justin Bennett. Where you at, Justin? Thank you. And the next one is Sarah, is it Remele? Remele. Pass. All right. That is everyone I had signed up. Did I miss anyone? Raise your hand if I missed you, calling your name. Nope. All right. We're going to give the applicant, Mr. Banks, a chance to come back up and speak if he chooses to do so. And if he wants, he can address concerns or he can say whatever he would like to say.
Thank you again. I was just taking some notes, so that I'll try to address the issues that were brought up. One of the first issues that was brought up was the concern about irresponsible shooters. And just to be real blunt about it, there is a lot of hunting and shooting that goes on in that area. And anybody who's been through a safety class and goes to a range to shoot intentionally at a prepared backstop, it's a lot safer. I don't really know what else to say about that, other than just the fact that this property right now and in the past has been used for hunting. And it's, sorry, I don't know what else to say there, but it's just that there's gunfire out there now that's a lot more random than what we're gonna do. It's gonna be very structured, which anytime you do structure, and people who come to a rifle range, they have a mentality because everybody knows right now our Second Amendment rights are under attack. Nobody wants to be the one that makes that mistake. So we actually have the type of clientele that wants to do things right And I believe that's the general aspect of everybody in the community who will be joining us. And I'd like to address the issue of the roads, and there was a concern about, could medical personnel come in should an accident happen, especially in the winter. And I mean, the simple answer I would give to that is that, we are gonna work to improve the roads on that property so you can get back in there. But if there is ever an issue with the weather that keeps people out, it's gonna keep our members out. We're not gonna allow people to just, park at the front of the driveway and hike in with their guns. That's not the kind of operation we're gonna run. Everything is gonna be very structured, and if for some reason there was bad weather that prohibited driving back in there, well, we'd be closed for a few days. I've spoke to a number of neighbors, well, not a number, but a couple of neighbors directly bordering that property that tell me that they target shoot out on their property all the time. And again, that this is gonna be a structured place that we'd like to invite our future neighbors to come and join us and, come shoot in a place that's prepared and ready for it. And also as far as, people bordering that property, we do plan on putting up fencing and signing all around the property. It's a lot and it's gonna take some time, but that's something we wanna do because you just need to. Because people go out in those woods and if they don't know they're coming onto a shooting range, how would they know? So yeah, we're gonna take care of that. Another thing I wanted to mention here too is, I actually had a note to mention this, but I forgot to bring it up earlier, was somebody brought about concern about, traffic on Galloway Road. It's a short road, it's a narrow road. And I've been out there a few times, even in the last couple weeks. I was out there a couple weeks ago, and I didn't see any speed limit signs on that road, but I treated it like a residential area. And I plan on educating our members and telling them that if you're gonna be a member, if you're gonna come to a class here, you're gonna treat this road like a residential road and you're gonna limit your speed to 25 or 30 miles an hour and drive like you care about this neighborhood. Because if you wanna be a member, you wanna come visit us, that's what we want. We're gonna require that of our members. I think that's everything I had, unless you have any more questions for me.
Will you fence the impact area?
What's that?
Will you have the impact area fenced?
The impact area? Well, I plan to actually fence the whole property.
Well, but you said that's gonna be a while.
Well, I'm just saying it's gonna take us time to do it. We'll have it done. We'll have fencing and signing up before we start shooting out there. I was just saying it's gonna be a big job, but we plan to do it before we start shooting out there.
Very big job.
Yeah. So maybe I should clarify.
Will you have the impact area where the bullets hit fenced?
Yeah, we'll put fencing around, at the very least, a border outside, not just on the impact area, but outside of that to keep anybody from going there. And I'd like to expand that out to cover the property, but absolutely, before there's any shooting, we will have it completely fenced off to where nobody can get to where the live fire is without knowing or climbing over a fence.
Put up traditional farm fence?
What's that?
Traditional farm fence?
Probably barbed wire fencing. I've shopped around a little bit, but we kind of are a little early on that process. So, I mean, just to be honest, I mean, if somebody wants to get past the fence, they're going to. But we're gonna make.
It's gonna keep kids out to a degree.
Yeah.
I have no other questions.
This is gonna be a semi-commercial business that you're putting in there. I classify it as a semi-commercial because of being membership only and dedicated. You're gonna be, you're talking about the roads.
Yeah.
You're gonna be increasing the traffic on those roads tremendously compared to what they are now. If everybody drives their own car in there, you got capabilities of 17 people shooting at one time. Have you put anything in your projectionary plans about getting ahead of the game on this road, making a travel road better?
No, we haven't. As far as I understand that, it's a county road, so that wouldn't really be up to us. I mean, we'd be happy to help if there's some way to help out, but.
I heard no effort was gonna be made, I said in there about getting with the county on the projectionaries on this road. I haven't heard anything said about that tonight.
Okay. You know, like I said, we're pretty early in the process. I mean, if you approve us tonight, it's going to be 5 months before we're even thinking about opening. So there's a lot of things we have to work on, and yeah, that would be one of them, is making sure. But I've looked at the road, I mean, and again, when you're talking about 15 or 20 cars over the course of a day, it sounds like a lot, but there are, I mean, I've been parked out there and I've seen 5 cars come and go within an hour when I've been out there. So I don't honestly believe it's going to be a big increase of traffic.
You had mentioned that people wait and all these other things, so I don't picture 17 cars in a day. I picture a lot more than that coming out, particularly if you're going to get your request for 12 hours of shooting. If you had 17 people there shooting for 12 hours and they each shot for, say, an hour, just speculation, that's one heck of a lot of cars.
Yeah, we don't really plan on having people coming and going and shooting for a few minutes and leaving. We plan on blocking out time blocks of, you know, anywhere from 1 to 4 hours for someone to come and practice their target shooting. So, you know, again, this is something that people do more often than not on a weekend or after work. So our during the day traffic is probably going to be 1 car here or there, and we might have a few more cars at once, you know, in the evening. You know, like as you get on toward 4 or 5 o'clock, people get off work. You know, you might have 2 or 3 cars coming in at the same time. Just to be honest, that's a possibility.
Are you going to be selling firearms or ammunition there at this establishment? Are you
No,
going to
we're
be
not.
licensed to do that?
We're not planning on opening a store. To be honest with you, I would like to eventually apply for an FFL to be able to provide ammunition, but we're not opening a store. So just to be clear, we're not having any people coming in to do shopping.
You're not going to be trying to work off of somebody else's FFL?
No. Now, if we do, it'll be because I apply for one so that we can have certain things on site. Like sometimes people come for a class and they don't even own a firearm, so if we had an FFL, we'd be able to provide that for them.
Gentlemen, any other questions?
Not at this time.
No? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. So we've heard testimony from the applicant, from those in opposition to, in support of, and interested in. We've heard again from the applicant a second time. So at this time, we will end our public meeting and I'm going to read off the information here for the special exception that the board has to agree that the applicant meets in order for us to grant this, if it is granted. Number 1, it says describe the proposed use of the property, and they've made a note, see attached. And they've written private club-style rifle and handgun range and training facility, range to operate during the day from 8 to 8. Property to be gated to restrict access. Per the site plan, an ATV trail will be improved to a drivable road. 1 structure will be built for the business. This structure will contain restrooms, classroom space, and a workshop/maintenance space. A home is also planned as a future development on the property. We will start with 1 full-time employee and 1 part-time employee. Under standards for evaluation, under 2.1, it makes a statement, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the special exception will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. The applicant indicates that statement's true. And writes, many safety measures will be in place to ensure the safety of the community. The following are some of the key safety features. Discharge of firearms will be restricted to members and those attending a structured class overseen by qualified instructors. All members will be required to attend a safety and orientation class prior to joining and to attend a refresher class annually. Junk targets Example, old appliances, cans and bottles, explosives, et cetera, will not be allowed, as these can lead to projectiles impacting in places other than the intended backstop. Naturally occurring hills will be used to create backstops that will meet or exceed the NRA's recommended 20-foot height. In addition to adequate backstops, long-distance rifle fire will be directed at a downward angle to increase safety. Under 2.2, the statement is a special exception will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. The applicant indicates that's a true statement and states the special exception should have no negative effects on the surrounding property. In addition to safety measures, there are some things being taken into consideration to prevent negative effects on other properties. Firing locations are well insulated within the woods to minimize sound disturbance. Land grading will avoid significantly altering water flow from the property by continuing to direct water to existing creeks / drainage cuts. In addition to necessary signage along the property boundaries, all persons becoming members at the range or coming for a class will be educated on proper respect for other properties. Examples, not trespassing, respecting speed limits, honoring self-enforced quiet times from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Under 2.3, it makes a statement, the establishment of the special exception will not impede or substantially alter the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding properties for uses prohibited in the district. The applicant indicates that's a true statement and makes a statement this special exception will have no significant effect on surrounding property development per the same guidelines outlined in response to 2.2. Under 2.4, the statement is adequate utilities, access road, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. The applicant indicates that's a true statement and states we've begun the process of arranging for necessary utilities and have confirmed water and power are available and will be able to apply for septic prior to building. Under 2.5, it makes a statement adequate measures have been made or will be taken to provide ingress and egress so designed to minimize traffic congestion on the public roadways. And the applicant indicates that's a true statement and responds space will be maintained between the public road and access control to allow vehicles to remain clear of the public road while navigating the access control. Under 2.6, the statement is the special exception will be located in a district where such use is permitted and all other requirements set forth in this UDO that are applicable to such a use will be met. Indicates again that's a true statement and makes the comment this special exception use is requested per UDO. Page 25 reference to gun club, private and public. All development standards will be complied with and building will not commence until proper permits have been obtained. For the technical reports, the county Health Department states that the Indiana Board of Health Commercial Division will need to be contacted for requirements for the septic system. From the surveyor, they make the note that they will need to submit an erosion and drainage plan prior to any new construction. For the staff recommendation, they have written that finding of fact number 1, ask if the establishment or operation of the use will be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. There is an inherent concern about public safety due to the nature of this use. But if designed and operated properly, the range should be able to operate safely. Finding number 2, ask if the use is approved, will it be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the area? There will be noise generated from this use, but because the volume, frequency, and duration of the firing range use is not accurately known at this time, the BZA may want to move forward cautiously. If approved, staff recommends restricting range hours to a more narrow window, such as 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and or limiting the range days to 3 specific days a week, such as Monday, Wednesday, Friday. After a year of operation, the petitioner can petition the BZA to reconsider these restrictions if needed. Finding number 3 asks if the use is approved, will it alter the normal development of surrounding property in the area? The future land use map labels this area as environmentally sensitive, so the expectation of anything other than agriculture or rural residential is unlikely. Finding of fact number 4 asks if there are adequate facilities to serve the use. The property is served by a county-maintained road which dead ends at the entrance to the subject property. If the use is approved, it will require a commercial septic system approved by the State Board of Health before a permit for the clubhouse construction can be issued. Finding number 5 asks if measures have been taken to minimize traffic congestion on public roadways. The primary concern here is to ensure appropriate ingress and egress onto the property. If this were anything other than a dead-end road, there may be need for entrance improvements or tapers. But given the low traffic volume, any improvements would be voluntarily performed by the petitioner. Finding of fact number 6 asks if the proposed use is on the list of special exceptions for the Ag District and if all UDO requirements have been met. This use is listed as a special exception, and if approved, no permits or development will occur without compliance with the UDO and any requirements that may be imposed as a condition of the approval. And lastly, because the petitioner has adequately satisfied the findings of fact for a special exception, staff recommends approval with the following conditions. Number 1, the daily hours of operation for the firing ranges be limited to 10 to 6. Number 2, the firing ranges can only be used Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and not on weekends. Number 3, the petitioner may return to the BZA 1 year after opening to request modifications to these restrictions. Gentlemen, we are open for discussion.
I look at this as a business. With a gun range. I'm familiar with the area. I don't think I could stand all that noise, 8 to 8 or any other limited hours. I want to hear it. Lots of gun ranges around. I just don't know if this is the right business in the right location.
Gentlemen, other discussion?
I feel that, you know,
Not in the right location.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it needs more restrictions. We need to develop some restrictions if we decide to approve it. I agree with Bill on the thing of the hours of operation. 12 hours a day operation is, that's just above, getting to the point of being a little bit above and beyond. In my opinion, I think, you know, if we do decide to approve it, I think we need to put restrictions on the days it's going to be open, starting out with the contingency that they can come back after a year or maybe even 2 years, because it's going to take them some time to get this up and going, to be able to expand on those contingencies that we lay in on them. I know it's going to be effective, some of the neighbors and stuff like that, but that's where we got to draw some lines on it too, as far as the restrictions on the thing. I think 10 to 6 is more than adequate time to have the hours of operations, and I would extend it to 4 days a week that you're allowed to have the ranges open, one of those days being Saturday. Because people can't always come through the week. You know, anybody that works for a living that's gonna have to take time off work to come out to use the range and stuff. And I think at least on Saturday, having that range one day open would be more than adequate. As I say, put a contingency into it, in my opinion, that after 2 years, they can come back and apply, and we can get the neighbors' opinions out of it at that time even deeper, and go from there. That's my opinion.
Gentlemen, other discussion?
Kind of go along with Fred, I think. I agree with Fred. I think he's right on Saturday, though, because a lot of people, that's the only time they got time to do anything other than go to work. And, you know, if it gets to be too many, they just need to make it by an appointment only.
I still don't want to hear gunshots all day long, and particularly, now, I do live out in the country. Thanksgiving Day, there was 5 people shooting, I don't know what, but they were shooting on their property. They were my neighbors. But it went on all day long. Now, I hunt. I shoot. I don't mind my neighbors doing it, but I don't want a business doing it around me, to be quite honest with you. That's the way I feel. It's a business in an area that these people have lived in a long time, and wouldn't bother my horse when I ride it down the road. Don't know if I've had dogs that it might bother, but not many. But it's just too much noise for people that have lived there for that long. All kinds of gun clubs, according to the information that they gave us. I don't really see a need for it in this area. And you're going to hear it. You're not going to convince me that the guns that I shoot are not going to be heard at least a quarter mile away, minimum. I just don't feel moving in here and making that much noise is fair to the people that live here.
Yeah, my thoughts on it are, I think that there's a need for it, there's a demand for it. I won't call it a need. I'd say there's a demand for it. And while it's a rural setting, and you've got a lot more distance than other gun clubs, as you cited, and ones that, quite frankly, I've been to and shot at myself. The concerns of the neighbors and the people that have been there for the longest time probably carries a little more weight with me. When they bought that property, they didn't sign up for the gun club next to them. Now, the other adage of that is if you want to control what goes on next to you, buy it. I don't know, gentlemen, I'm probably more torn on this one than I have been on anything we've had in a while in here. I don't know that it's the wrong place. You know, sometimes I'll use the example of the wrong thing in the wrong place. I don't know that that's the case.
I think with the terrain they've got, though, that's a good place for a range.
Don't disagree with that.
The backs and that type of stuff.
But again, you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it constantly, and I don't think that you need that. I mean, I think a small factory would probably be quieter than a gun range, to be quite honest with you. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I agree. It's a good area, things like that. I did not hear anything from them about their certification as to doing this. And we've all taught our kids and grandkids to shoot and things like that. And the hunter safety rules that we've got now mean that the majority of the people out there that are hunting are going to have to follow those for a hunting license. But when I look down this road, and I'm familiar with that area, you're going to hear it constantly. And I don't think you want to hear it constantly, even if we restricted it to, you'd have to have it open on a weekend. I agree with you there.
At least one day on the weekend.
One day. And, you know, when they initially came in with a 12-hour deal, that blew me away. Even 4 days a week, with that one being a Saturday, you're not going to want to be outside and listen to that stuff all day long. And it's going to go on all day long. As soon as one guy leaves that bench with that rifle, the next guys that come in and start shooting. And I did not hear them speak anything about, are they going to have automatic target retrieval? Don't know. Are you going to have to walk down there and shut down for a while? Pull your target, bring it back, look at it, or paste over the numbers like we did in the military? That would limit, if I took my rifle out there and was sighting it in, and I'm going to be active right before deer season or if I go out west, but even something is less noisy, say, you know, at 6 or something like that, it's still one heck of a lot of constant noise. And I just don't think we should do that to the people that live in that area. Not that it's not the right place, because it probably is, but, you know, I wouldn't mind if it was a diesel tractor running a combine or, but you're not gonna be doing too much out there, but it's just, it's not necessarily in the wrong place, but it's the wrong business to be there, in my opinion.
Other discussion, gentlemen? Couldn't hear you, Jerry.
I agree with what's been said.
Yeah, again, I'll go back to, I think there's a demand for it. I certainly a need for the training as more and more people own firearms. I know when I was a police officer and we had to qualify every quarter and you know, kind of kept you up to speed, and for a private citizen to have a place to go shoot and be able to do something similar, I think would be a great thing to have. I'm just kind of trying to balance out if it's the right thing for the rest of the neighbors out there tonight. Any other discussion?
No?
Nope. All right, open for a motion.
If I make one, it's gonna be to deny, and, of course, it could go any which way, but, this is not gonna bring any business, basically, to Morgan County from a business standpoint. It's going to, Galloway Road is not a thoroughfare, that's for daggone sure. Fair amount of houses out there that are gonna hear this. And when you look at this layout here, there's lots to develop listed on here as I look at it, which would make it tough for me to wanna buy one out there, hearing all that noise. That's gonna cut down on development.
You're strictly against it under any circumstances, even though if we did put limitations on it, the number of days of the week and the number of hours of the week.
Yeah, I think I would be opposed to it. Just having to listen to it continuously for, if we said that they could run it 4 days a week, that's 32 hours of noise in that week, and that's just, even at 8 hours, that's just more noise than I would want. Now, we've had one of these on State Route 142, but that was limited to basically 22s near Gash Road. I don't think it's there anymore. but, you know, you shoot a 338, it's a lot of noise. You shoot an 06, it's a great deal of noise. You shoot even a 243 or something like that, you've got a pretty loud crack. And I just don't want people to be subject to the noise. Not that it's not needed, I agree with it, it's needed. And maybe I'm special and lucky because I have a place to shoot a gun and a gully on my property, on my son's property, friend's property, things like that. But to subject people that have lived there for a long time to this noise is just, I can't vote for it.
Still open for a motion, gentlemen.
I will move that we deny SE 22-22-08.
Making that motion.
I'm
Mr.
making that a motion based on the following reasons. Noise on number 2.1. On 2.2, the special exception injures the use and enjoyment of the other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. And that would be my reason there. The 2.3, it's not going to improve the orderly development, improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district that's living there. It's not going to make one good motion for it. I can't really adequately say anything about drainage in 2.4. Ingress and egress. I'm familiar with the county. There's not enough people on there to have the county put my tax dollars into a much bigger road just for that. It just, based on noise.
Thank you. I have a motion to deny. Do I have a second to that motion? Second to that motion, I'll make the second. All in favor, again, we're voting on Bill's motion, my second to deny. All in favor, please raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Jerry, how are you voting? Okay. All right, so we have 3 votes to deny, so the application's denied, folks. All right. Folks, you're free to stay. We've got more meeting to do. You're free to leave. We do ask if you're exiting, please do so quietly so we can continue our business this evening. Mr. Peden, do we have a BZA attorney's report this evening? Thank you. Ms. Parker, do we have a plan director's report this evening? We are not having a meeting in December. Gentlemen, just a call out that we did receive a schedule of meeting dates in our packet for 2023. So if there's any known issues with that, if you could let Ms. Parker, her office, know as soon as possible, that's appreciated. Otherwise, I don't see anything else that we have in front of us this evening. So anything else from Ms. Parker, Mr. Peden? Open for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Have a second from Jerry. All in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.